Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome back to the Winning Drive, the primetime edition. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by a fellow lifetime Longhorn, but he's also a national champion. My man Marcus Myers joining us. Coach is going to be coming up a little bit later on, so we'll welcome Coach in when he comes. We appreciate all you guys. Oh, for Matthew, yes.
Yeah, shout out to Matthew for sure.
Yeah, prayers to my man Matthew. He's going through some stuff, obviously, and could use your prayers and all of your well wishes and thoughts. So our hearts, of course, with Matthew. He's the MVP of this thing. So we appreciate everything he does. Even when he's not here, he's here in spirit with us. We appreciate Blake back there now, stepping in and twisting the dials. Marcus After Darkest. What's up, CB? I saw you there. What's up to everybody in the chat? We appreciate all you guys joining us as well. All right, we'll get into a lot of different things on the show. I want to dive into a conversation about one of the members of the secondary, DBU. We'll talk about that. Also, there's draft discussion, a lot of big boards coming out. We'll talk about where some of the Longhorns are landing in some of these mock drafts. You guys know I'm kind of a mock slut, so I'll look at any mock draft out there. And we'll also get into some macro college football discussion. I can't believe it, but Georgia had some more guys arrested for traffic offenses. It's crazy. They doing it on purpose at this point, guys. It's amazing.
They trolling us, right?
Come on, man. They got to be trolling us at this point. That's Kirby Smart. I don't know. So do people ask Kirby about this? What does Kirby Smart say about all of his players getting?
I was listening to I think it was Bobby and Jerry were talking about it this morning, and so Blake was probably on with them. And they were basically saying like writers have talked about, wanting to do, investigations on it, and they've tried to report on as best as they can. But at the end of the day, like Kirby keeps winning. So it kind of, keeps getting brushed under the rug. It'd be different if, he was losing games or getting blown out frequently. And unfortunately, that's just kind of par for the course, right? Like a lot of things get forgiven when you're putting up W's.
It's a great point. Totally agree with you. For those who don't know what we're referencing, Georgia had 2 players arrested on driving-related charges, Chris Cole, and I will mispronounce the young man's name, so I won't do that. Darren, so I'm not going to pronounce it. But he's arrested. But there was the 32nd player, by the way. This is the stat that blows his mind. 32nd player to be arrested since 2023. On a kind of driving-related offense or something like that. It's crazy. 6th arrest for Georgia since November. So, I don't know. They got some Fast and Furious stuff going on. Like, I don't know what it is about it. But, hey, now they got the money to have nice cars, too. So, maybe when you got nice cars in there, you just want to, open up a little bit. I get it. All right. We're going to be talking about Georgia. We'll talk about Texas. Texas, actually, big news on the 40 acres. I want to talk about this story first before we get into the salaries. The PK news, congratulations, is in order. For Pete Kwiatkowski, because it was announced yesterday, I believe it was, that Pete Kwiatkowski was taking or offered, and I assume taking the defensive line position, defensive line coaching job with the Arizona Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were surprised by this. I think it shows you that Pete Kwiatkowski is a much more respected name in the coaching world than a lot of Longhorn fans might have realized. And I'm glad that, after obviously being relieved of his duty here at Texas, that Pete Kwiatkowski not only landed on his feet, but, I think a lot of Longhorn fans were surprised at him actually going to the NFL level coach. And so congratulations to him. Did it surprise you? Because a lot of Longhorn fans seem very surprised by that.
I think it surprised me just in that, like, I just assumed he would go, back to college somewhere. And now, the thing that didn't surprise me is he went west. That was kind of the talk, that he wanted to go, back west some. So being there in Arizona, achieves that a bit. What it also kind of lines up with, though, Rod, is, some of the criticism was him not being like a big recruiter, right? Like not jumping on the road like you've seen Muschamp do. And as crazy as this NIL game has gotten, now he doesn't have to do any of that. He just goes and coaches some ball. And then depending on the coaching staff, like I know, I've heard from Rod and Frank a number of times, Rod Wright, Frank Ocam, lifetime Longhorns, that, they really enjoy that they get a little bit of their lives back to some degree. Like, and I know that is kind of dependent upon, the coaching staff, if you will. but that D'Amico Ryans does a pretty good job of, how they, have their days scheduled and that kind of thing. So I think it fits him well. At the end of the day, he's able to continue to coach ball, but he doesn't have to worry about recruiting, and he doesn't have to worry about, any of the NIL landscape.
I totally agree with Bobby's comment and their DKW that he is overqualified for the job of just a position coach, D-line coach in the NFL. But one thing that we talked about here in Texas was that he was good at the fronts, right? At designing the fronts and building the fronts. What PK struggled with at times was tying the back end, the coverages with the fronts. He ain't got to worry about that. Now he's just all front knowledge, and he can pass that obviously on to the players there in the NFL as a D-line coach. So good for Pete Kwiatkowski. I think a lot of folks were surprised, but it's like when you break up with your ex and then she still ends up landing a dude, and you're impressed by him. You're like, oh, actually, that's an impressive man. So I gotta admit, like that's
a good get right there.
She still got a even though you're a catch, she still got a catch. So give it up to Pete Kwiatkowski, man. No doubt about that. All right, cool. Well, let's dive into the salaries of the Texas. Before we do that, though, Coach has joined us. Perfect.
Hey, what's up, Coach?
What's up, Coach? How you doing? How you feeling?
Oh,
Coach?
I was doing great till I had a flat in the middle of a pasture.
Oh man,
for my real job, showing a ranch.
See, that's how
on the far. I was on the far end, as far as you could get from civilization.
Well, we're glad you made it.
Did you time yourself changing the coach? Did you time yourself changing the flat?
No, man, I didn't have the tool to crank down my spare. That's what took. I could have been home at 5 o'clock, and I drove 90 miles an hour to get here to get on at 7:30.
Oh, Coach, we appreciate it, and you didn't have to do that, Coach. We appreciate it. See, Coach, people forget that Coach is actually a real rancher. See, some of y'all out there faking it, and Coach ain't faking it. So
I got prickly pears sticking in my legs right now.
So exactly. So we appreciate you, Coach. Thank you for joining us. Before we dive into some of these coaching salaries and get into matter of fact, your questions, comments, guys, whatever you guys want to discuss, throw it out there. Super chats always jump to the front of the line, and you can interrupt the show at any time. Just throw out a super chat. Let's thank our lead sponsor first, our friends over at Von Lane, before we move on, and we'll dive into some other topics. But thank you to our friends at Von Lane. We appreciate their ongoing support of On Texas football. Folks, now I know a lot of you out there are back at it, right? The meetings, the conferences, you're probably traveling in between the major Texas cities, flying some of those shorter routes. Maybe you're driving yourself, dealing with traffic and road rage and being, jet lagged when you get there and tired and probably in a bad mood, but you still got work to do. Folks, let me tell you about Von Lane. It is a much better option. It is the most, I think, a first class, the most luxurious travel experience on the road today. You board in minutes at a private hotel terminal. You settle into one of just 22 oversized leather seats. You enjoy complimentary Wi-Fi, snacks, beverages, and hot towel service on every trip. Also on select departures, you even have complimentary meals. They've even upgraded their Wi-Fi with Starlink internet across the entire fleet, making it faster and even more reliable, so you can get a lot of work done on those trips as well. So I've taken the Von Lane myself to Houston. I've taken it to Dallas. I've taken it for business. I've taken it to visit family. My wife has taken the Von Lane several times. We actually partnered with our friends at Third and Longhorn and our friends at Von Lane. They were able to help us power our Texas tour with them. So folks, I would highly recommend it. It serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands as well, Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, and Knoxville. And if you're traveling with a team, you can charter your own Von Lane coach, designing the trip from pickup to drop off. Visit vonlane.com, VONLANE.com. And if it's your first time riding, you can enter the code OTF26 at checkout to receive $20 off your first trip with Von Lane. That's Von Lane, your private jet on wheels. All right, thank you very much to our lead sponsor for tonight's program, our friends over at Von Lane. All right, let's get back to this. I want to get one topic, then we'll get to some of the questions. Okay, so there were some raises in order. Shout out to the U.S. What'd you say, CV? Shout out to the women's hockey team. I missed that one. The U.S. women's hockey team.
Yeah, they won gold.
Shout out. Are y'all watching any of the Winter Olympics, Coach? Are you watching any of it?
No, the only thing I've watched a little bit here and there. One of my college teammates had a son that made the bobsled team. In fact, he was a walk-on at Texas A&M at football and wound up getting on scholarship and being a pretty good player for him. Boone Niederhofer. And he came back to A&M and he's like Jackson's age. I mean, it's not like he's a pup, you know.
Wow.
He was there like in 2012, 13, 14. Came back to A&M. They had for some reason at College Station, they had a bobsled tryout team. And anyway, he tried out and made the team. He's on the 4-man bobsled team that'll run Sunday evening. And so the only A&M grad to ever be in the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool deal. His dad and I were good friends, and so that's all I'm going to watch. Really, that's Sunday.
That's solid, Coach. I know we were talking about track, last week, and I've seen that happen before beyond just cool runnings. Like there'll be track athletes that will end up running or using their speed for bobsled. They're actually there was someone that ran track at Texas.
Wow.
I forget her last name right now, but she probably was pretty close to your year because I think she was either a senior my freshman year or like was graduating when I was coming in. Her name was Helen though, and she was from Canada. She ran track and she ended up being on the Canadian bobsled team.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Yeah. What jumped to mind was I think a guy from the team dated her. And I'm not going to say who.
I think you're right.
I don't want to get him in trouble because he's married now. And I don't want to just throw stuff out there.
I think you're right.
You know what I'm talking about? Right. You remember they dated for a while. Like they were serious, I believe.
Yeah.
Like they dated
for that happens rather frequently. So I'm kind of like Coach though. That's about the only thing I watch. And somehow if I ever see curling on TV, it just because I don't understand it. It just looks like they're like. Well, I think sound ignorant. It looks like they're just cleaning ice. So
I think we're like in the semifinals tonight. I think with the curling. If I'm not
curling is really good. I know that.
Yeah. If it comes on, man, I get stuck to it. But bobsled and that. Yeah.
Not me. No. I like the luge. I don't like all the trick skiing and all that stuff. I mean, it's amazing. Those guys are amazing.
It is amazing.
But give me those guys going like 120 miles an hour. That's what gets my attention.
No, I will say this. There's something that you can find that you'll enjoy. If you don't know a damn thing about any of the sports at the Winter Olympics, there should be something. Like whether it's the bobsled, the luge, I don't know, some of the freestyle skiing. Like some of that stuff is wild. It is. I agree. They're skilled athletes. Ain't no doubt about that. It just may not be your thing. All right. Sorry. Got off task there. All right. Let's get back to the salary increases for the Longhorns. Coach, just make you wish you were still coaching, huh, Coach? It says all told, basically Texas will pay their entire coaching staff, Steve Sarkisian included, around $24.4 million for that 2026 year altogether. There were a lot of salary increases for coaches. 5 assistants will earn at least $1 million in 2026. And Kenny Baker, I think, is slated to join them in 2027. He's going to be $1 million guy. Brandon Harris is probably among the, I would say, the most talked about of the salary increases. And you shouldn't, I don't believe in talking about folks' money, but I guess this is public record for Texas fans. And I'll just say this for anybody critical of Brandon Harris, because they have put together a really good roster here for this 2026 campaign. I don't know if there's any roster construction right now tougher in sports than college football. Because you don't get them, you don't know who you got for more than a year.
Yeah.
Every year you're rebuilding it. Like at least in the pros, you got contracts. All right, I got this guy for 3 years, got this guy for 2, got this guy for 1. You know ahead of time, so you can already start your plan. Yeah. In college, you have no idea until you get to the end of the season who's staying, who's going. I don't even know when they start negotiating with the agents for getting these guys, for retention. I don't know when the retention efforts start. So I'll just say that I think he's done a good job with this roster, obviously in 2026. But it's a tough job being a GM in college football these days. Like it is. I don't even know where you start.
Well, I'll tell you this. Well, when I knew Brandon Harris, he was making about $25,000 a year at Texas. And so congratulations to him. but he has the most difficult job on the staff, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because he is the contact point with the agents. He's the contact point with the parents. He's a contact point with the players. And so he's trying to keep everybody happy and yet keep the best roster that he can. And it's an incredibly difficult job. And, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, the people that he has come through for on NIL, of course, they love him. The ones that maybe weren't producing like they should have, that maybe didn't get what they thought they should, they don't like him at all. You know, it's just the part of the job that you got to have thick skin, and you can't be the kind of guy who wants to make everybody happy, because there's no way he can make everybody happy. He's got to make decisions based on what's best for the football team, not to try to keep everybody happy. And so sometimes you got to tell people things they don't want to hear, you know. And I know I haven't talked to Brandon. I mean, I know he makes $1 million a year. I mean, he don't even take my calls anymore. You know? but I know it's a very, very, very difficult job. And if you're on that roster, you either love him or you can't stand him. That's just the role he's in.
That's
and
true.
I'm gonna tell you, he deserves every penny he's making.
Good point, Coach.
Because it is a pressure cooker job, because it all falls on his shoulders. Of course, he has lots of help. He doesn't make all those decisions by himself, but he's the one that's communicating with the players and with their parents and with the agents.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly, incredibly tough job.
Damn, that's a good point, Coach. Either you love him or you hate him on that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to parents. Some of them love him. Some of them can't stand him because they think their kid ought to be making more, you know. But, you know, the proof's in the pudding. If you produce, or if you have produced at other schools, then, you know, you're gonna make the NIL money. If you hadn't quite crossed over that hump, you got to kind of prove yourself, you know, unless you've got a lot of talent that hasn't yet been displayed yet because of somebody really good in front of you or whatever. But he is in the toughest job on the staff, in my mind, hands down.
Yeah. The one that stuck out to me too, beyond that, Coach, was Jaluk. Like if that number is accurate, and I imagine there's probably some kind of offset language or something in his contract from when he was with Florida, because he had just signed like an extension with Florida before he came here, and he's over 600 there.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's got to be some kind of way he's getting something in addition to that. I can't imagine that would be the only thing. Maybe it's just what we're on the hook for this year or something. I don't know how all that works, but I can't see him dropping that much and then jumping that much next year. So there's got to be
Blake Gideon and Will Muschamp ain't coaching down yet. They already got a ring.
Yeah, man.
That's true.
Not bad.
He's got a good agent. You have a good agent. And maybe Duluth's got a good agent, but I'm with you. I think you're right, Mark. I bet there's some contract thing there where, you know, that's good, that offset that somehow. But it's an all-in coaching staff in terms of how much you're paying for the coaching staff too. You're paying top dollar because you're all in on the roster, all in on the coaching staff for 2026 for Longhorns. All right. So we'll get into a couple of questions here, and then we'll. I got a couple of topics that I want to get coaches and Mark's thoughts on. Sergey here says still a head scratcher by Sark to have fired Coach K after defense was the only reason Texas was in the vicinity of the playoff the last 2 years. I just think it was. I think Jerry made a good point that Sark always his initial choice was Muschamp, and it didn't work out. And at the time, right, it was bad timing. Muschamp had some other priorities, and so it didn't work out at the time. So maybe Sark saw a chance there to get his, initial choice, which was Muschamp. But PK had done, I think, a fantastic job. I also think there's a belief that PK was going to continue to struggle marrying the coverages with the fronts. Yeah. And there's only one season where your pass defense has been inside the top 60, I believe, with PK as your defensive coordinator, and that was 2024. Now, you were top 5 in the country. You're really good. But you did have the Thorpe Award winner. You had Makuba. That was a really good secondary, all-time great secondary. Taft was an All-American. So the belief was, do you need all the pieces performing at that high a level just to have an elite secondary, then maybe there was something going on with, obviously the synchronicity with the coverages and the front. Also, I think and honestly, I think Sark kind of threw PK under the bus. He said Muschamp's the head coach of the defense, and even said this is going to allow me to focus more on offense, almost implying he was spending too much time trying to help fix the defense. And also, look at sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as a head coach, I don't care. I've always told people this. I don't care if you're a high school head coach or a small college head coach or a big college head coach or an NFL head coach. My philosophy, what I was taught, I think rings true with Coach Sark, and that is every decision that you make has to be what's best for the team. Even though it's not an easy decision. I've had to fire close friends before because for whatever reason, they weren't getting it done or they weren't best. They didn't work the fit for our team. And so I know as a head coach, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, you can always rest easier when you know every decision that you make is what's best for those players, what's best for that program. And I think that's what Sark did. I don't know that we were ever going to get over the hump with PK, although I'm thankful for what he did for the time that he was there. But I think Sark just simply made a decision that was best for his program. And a good head coach, a solid head coach, is always going to be loyal to his players above everything else. What's best for those players, And I mean, we'll see how it turns out. But I think what he did was, in his mind, what was best for the program. And that's what a good head coach will do instead of going down with the ship, like I'm going to be ultra loyal to these guys no matter what, even though they may not be getting the job done and putting us in a situation to help us win a national championship.
Yeah, my thought on that too, Coach, and I'd be curious what you think is, when you're talking about that, I agree. Part of me thinks that Sark, I think we've discussed this before, but part of me thinks that Sark also saw that his team, his players needed to have more edge. And so by bringing in a Muschamp and even Jalute, on the offensive side of the ball, both are deeply steeped in the SEC. And for some of the road games that you're going to have this year, a 9-game SEC season, I think that was also a piece of it, right? Like to Rod's point, having someone that can call the entire defense and marry the front end with the back end, but then also, have that swagger. We've heard, from Longhorn fans before that they want to see Sark be more demonstrative at times, to show more emotion, whether it's on the sideline or in a post game. And that's not really who he is. So if you go out and get somebody like Muschamp, I mean, we know like he lives there. That is who he is. So I think it maybe helps to shore up some of that, and hopefully, can have a similar effect, when, I've seen before where coaches have come in and regardless of what side of the ball, they sometimes just demand more in the way of discipline as well. And if it's a fiery guy, sometimes, that can help. And maybe that, also ends up, playing out on the penalty side of things.
I don't think you want a staff full of crazy, wild, motivational guys. You don't. You need to have a staff that fits and people fill in maybe the gaps that you don't feel like as a head coach you need to do.
Yep.
Excuse me. Head coach always need to be under control. When the players see the way the coaches react, then that's the way they react. And some coaches just lose their stuff on a rep or lose their stuff, on a bad call or whatever, or a fumble or whatever. And the team responds to that. Head coach's job is to keep everybody stable, keep everybody focused on the job at hand, hire other people to be those motivators and to be those edge guys. And of course, the discipline comes down to the head coach. But when you hire a guy like Muschamp, who his defense is going to be disciplined, then you've taken a load off your shoulders, because now as he said, apparently he's head coach of the defense. That means he's not messing with him. Yeah. He has the defense. That's his thing, and he'll let him do his thing. Let Sark keep his cool on the sideline. Let Muschamp hit those chalkboards and stuff, with his elbow, whatever. Head coach that got to be cool. He's got to be calm, because if he's losing his stuff, then the players are going to lose their stuff, and then that's not good for the team. because players aren't playing within themselves. They're playing, thinking about the last bad call or whatever the head coach may be losing his stuff about. I think it's a good move. I think it's a good balance. You have to have balance, and I never saw PK as being a real, motivational, kind of fiery type guy.
No.
To me, a defensive coordinator has to be able to motivate his defense to play because you got to bring it every play. All 11 guys playing together every single play, man. They got to be bringing it, So I'm hoping that this hire will allow Sark to continue to be who he is, be the calmness, be the presence of the team on the sideline, and let those other guys, Jaluk and let Muschamp, be those guys that are getting in people's faces, and keeping that edge to the team.
And one of the things because all those are great points. Another thing to keep in mind, you got a Kirby problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in most of college football. Let's be honest, right? And if you wanted to, like Ric Flair said, to beat a man, you got to beat the man, and you ain't beat the man yet. And Muschamp knows as much about the man as anybody. He was one of the men next to the man, and gained the trust of Kirby Smart. So if you need somebody to help dissect and reverse engineer your game plans whenever you got to face Georgia in the college football playoff or the SEC title game, because you're going to have to see them again. Just because they ain't on your schedule don't mean you ain't going to see them again. It's pretty clear that Georgia's going to be in your path if you want to get to the national title somehow. So he can give you a lot of the tips and the tricks. He's a guy, an insider, that can help you try to beat Kirby Smart. Because right now it's clear Sark hadn't figured out Kirby. Kirby's figured out Sark, but Sark ain't figured out Kirby. Muschamp can help with that too.
And probably even influence the approach, right? Like
Yes.
Not just the pure X's and O's. Like, how do you go about it in practice? You hear about Bloody Tuesdays at Georgia. Like, are there things that Muschamp can implement? And I would think that he's also the type of voice in a room that Sark would be more inclined to listen to, right? Like, I imagine, to Coach's point, you don't want to have a room full of guys that aren't really willing to challenge and or, kind of speak up. Hey, does it make sense that we're doing this? Maybe we should try this, right? Like, you don't want a group of guys in totality that's just going to go along with everything. Like, you need someone to pressure test some of your processes and your, procedures, how you think through things. And I can't imagine Muschamp is the guy that's going to be one to bite his tongue if he thinks maybe we should be doing something different. So I think that could play into it as well.
No, I totally agree, Mark, because that's one of the things we know Sark wanted from PK. He wanted him to be more aggressive. He wanted a tougher defense, more aggressive defense, and more physical defense. And PK, I thought, actually was trending more toward those things. That's why he came down from the booth. Remember, he was up in the booth at first. He's like, I got to get down because I want to see the eyes of my players. To coach's point about motivating, I need to see the eyes of these guys. All right, when I'm talking to them, I need to know kind of state of mind they're in. And he came down, and by the way, the defenses did get more aggressive. The blitz rates, all that, man coverage rates, stunt rates, all that went up for PK. I just don't think it went up enough for Sark. And then Sark ultimately was like, no, I want a guy, not only the personality is physical, tough, and intense and aggressive, but that will translate to the defense. And I think he wanted a guy also that knows the ecosystem of the SEC. PK doesn't know the ecosystem of the SEC. He was learning it, but he didn't know it. It wasn't in his DNA like it is for a Muschamp. This is a guy who was a West Coast guy, went back to the West Coast, but remember it took him a while to adapt to the Big 12, to my man CB's point here. He started out with a really bad defense in 2021, horrendous defense, and turned that defense into an elite defense. Just took him like 3 years, but it turned into an elite defense by 2024. So you got to give him credit for that. I just think it ideally, in the end, it still wasn't what Sark ideally wanted for defense. And he didn't want to waste Arch's but he didn't want to miss an opportunity with Arch's last year and Colin Simmons last year. So, good discussion, gentlemen. Real good stuff. All right, getting back to some of the questions here. How about this from Cisco says, is this a make or break it year for Flood? If you have the same issues you had last year, meaning if Arch Manning is one of the top 10 most pressured quarterbacks in college football, and you are also have an offensive line that's one of the top 5 most penalized offensive lines in the Power 4, yeah, probably. Yeah. But I don't anticipate that being the case. I anticipate you will correct some of those issues.
Yeah, I think if you see more of the same of what you saw the first half of the year, and or regression, then I think that's fair. But to your point, Rod, I mean, it was so bad at times last year. Like the bar isn't that high to not be that bad, right? Along with that, we've kind of hypothesized around. We imagine this group being a much better pass protection group than anything, for sure. Like if there's something you were going to kind of bank on, it would likely be that, just with some of the guys they brought in and kind of the makeup of the team, as well as the skill players that they brought in. So I have a really tough time seeing them be worse. And honestly, I pretty confidently feel they'll be significantly better. And to me, I think that would be more than enough. But you're spot on, Rod. Like you got to protect Arch. You can't be near the bottom of the country, right? Like you can't count on him to continue to just survive the hits and help you get out of bad situations. So
yeah, I agree with Alan Makeda's 5975. It's all eyes are on Kyle Flood, because I think Sark has just proven that he will make a change on a staff, even though it's a guy that's been with him the whole time he's been here, if they're not meeting the standards, So whose shoulder does the fault and the blame land on when you have not recruited well? And, coaching is one thing, but recruiting is just as important, if not more. You've got to have a guy that can do both, that can evaluate the talent, recruit them, sign them, and then develop them. And I think last year was a big swing and a miss for the recruiting of the guys over the past 2 or 3 years that they had to play with last year. And those guys that they missed, I think, on them recruiting. They weren't guys that could develop, or they weren't developed. I'm not sure which. I don't know that they could be developed. Actually, some of them, they were just that bad, And so I think it's a make or break year for Kyle Flood. I really do. I think it's show up or shove off, one of the two, because this has got to be the year that our offensive line comes through. Well, you've got the running backs that we have, you've got the receivers that we have, you got the quarterback that we have. We cannot have a glaring, obvious bad offensive line. I don't know what else to say.
I do want to throw this.
You're holding your tongue, Coach.
You're right. Yeah, you're right, Coach. And I do just want to throw this out there, though, because I'm by no means a Kyle Flood truther, right? Like I'm not. I couldn't care less one way or the other. I just want to see a good product on the field. That being said, I do think we also have to give him credit for what the strongest pieces of the team were last year were guys he recruited. I mean, he recruited Trevor Gooseby and had him in a position to be able to play at a high level. Brandon Baker is a guy that's been in the program that ended up actually having a pretty strong year, when it was all said and done. So I don't disagree with the fact that there have been a number of misses, and ideally at a place like Texas, it should be better. I also I guess I'm just pointing out, had he not recruited those two, like how much worse would it have been, right?
Well, when you look at Indiana had 4 or 5 Goosebees, what I'm saying? Georgia has 4 or 5 Gooseby, or 3 or 4. You're not going to have 5, but those.
That's fair.
They have many more than we have. Why is that the case?
That's a good. I mean, I think this is why it's a make or break year. That's why I think we're all agreeing that if you have any kind of repeat performance, pass protection wise or discipline wise, in terms of penalties from the offensive line, the lack of focus on the O line, with all these new pieces being added to it, then maybe there's a much larger issue. So I think coach is right. But remember, I remember saying that, by the way, I remember saying that about Blake Gideon and saying that about Terry Joseph in like 2024. Because remember, it was like, well, the secondary has been subpar every year. I was like, if it continues to be subpar 21, 22, and then in 24, well, guys, I think you got your answer. I mean, just look at the product on the field. But it wasn't. That secondary was amazing. It was awesome. It literally became a great. So, sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes the coaches understand. They respond just like players in the contract years. They know, like, hey, it's a make or break year for me. I think Kyle Flood probably feels a little bit of that pressure. All right, good one. How about this one from Oregon Coast Longhorn? He says, if we play Georgia this year, do you think Smart will tweak things to prevent Muschamp from sharing too much? That's a good point. I mean, that's a great point. We don't know how much Muschamp knows that is applicable. You know what I mean? To help Sark, he's got some knowledge that will help him, but how much, right? We don't know. We don't know that. Like, how much does Muschamp know about the Georgia offense and defense and Kirby Smart's? I do feel like because he was the defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart, that Sark can directly present him literally with a game plan and go, will it work?
Yeah, pick this apart.
No. No, it won't work. I can tell you right now. This is what Georgia's going to do. They're looking at this. So I feel like that's why I feel like he can be a real resource for Sark to help him reverse engineer those game plans against Georgia. But Kirby Smart is a brilliant coach. Like, think about it. Kirby Smart, I always say that win big games, you got to break tendency. All the games against Sark, he's broken tendency and beat Sark. Right? Think about he had his first onside kick. Sorry, first onside kick since he's been at Georgia to beat Sark last time. You realize they were under center 21 times. It was the most under center snaps in the SEC up until that week. It might have been the most under center snaps all year long in the SEC. Under center 21 times against Texas. You don't think that was intentional? I think it was. I think it was. And then in the SEC title game, fake punt, broke tendency against Texas at the right time. Perfect way to break tendency against Texas. He did it defensively against Sark the first go around. Remember, Sark was in a blender, and so was Quint. I mean, neither one of them knew what the hell was going on. They put Arch in there, and Arch got in the blender too. They was all in there together. All right, so he's brilliant at breaking tendency, and that's what I appreciate about Kirby Smart. Like, I don't know if anybody's better at breaking. You gotta do it at the right time. So you can't do it at the wrong time. Then you're like an idiot. You break tendency at the right time, and boom, brilliant.
Yeah, you do it at the wrong time. It looks like desperation.
Exactly. And Kirby's been doing it at the right time against Sark. So I do think it'll help, but I don't know how much it'll help, because Kirby is a brilliant coach, man. He really is. He's a good coach. Great coach. Sorry. Yeah. All right. Don't forget Gary Patterson came in to help PK. He did. Help him get to know the Big 12, because he didn't know the ecosystem. But once he figured it out, he was, that defense got better. Gary Patterson, now he's on the West Coast. Now we had Gary Patterson on the West Coast out there at USC. We're gonna see what GP can do, which I got a lot of faith in GP. Let Coach Flood be the tackle coach. Let him be the tackle coach. You go, what? I mean, I get bring in another O-line coach or something. Yeah, I guess maybe you could bring in an assistant O-line. Do we have an assistant O-line coach? Did I miss that?
I think they just added a guy, right?
They just took Jason McIndoe.
Yes.
And moved him over, correct? Am I right about that? Was that the move?
I think that's what it was.
Remember, he was like the H-back. He brought in that kind of that cowboy back mentality, which I thought they were going to keep him as the cowboy back coach, and that's not the official name of him. Remember, he's the one that came up with the cowboy back position at Oklahoma State. Flood is the OT coach. There's an interior O-line coach on staff now and a tight end coach. Yeah, so maybe that's Jason McIndoe that they moved. I know they moved him over there to a certain position. And I thought they would actually kind of keep him. So maybe he's doing both. If he's doing both, that's weird. But especially in the day and age where you can just hire as many coaches as you want to. That would be strange to me. But I like that cowboy back position for Nick Townsend. I think he'd be really good at it. Going from fullback to H-back to tight end. He's so athletic, and he's so physical. I think he'd be really good at that position. But anyway, yeah, I think it's Jason McIndoe. I don't know what they're trying to do to fix it on O-line, as long as they fix it.
So he's a senior offensive line analyst, Rod. So
he's not
to some degree. Yeah, to some degree, he's just helping out with, that position and kind of how they go about. Maybe it's self-scout, maybe it's identifying, whatever. Coach might maybe even to be able to kind of shed a little more light on what some of those analysts do.
It's difficult when you have two different offensive line coaches.
Yeah.
It's just tough because you have to be on the same page for everything because they all have to work together as one unit, and so if you got one guy telling them something, another guy telling them something else, and I can't imagine that they would do that, but I have seen people do that, and you get two hard-headed guys in there and they think they're doing it the right way and they're not really working together. And I think that's the best scenario is having two guys that think just alike and have exactly the same philosophy on how we're going to handle different pressures, how we're going to block different schemes, how we're going to calls we're going to make against different fronts, movement right before the ball snap, and all those things. It all has to be one moving part, and if you can do that, it's fine. If you can't, then it's going to be trouble.
Yep, I agree with that. And Coach, you've coached O-line, right, Coach?
Yes.
Yeah. See, line play is totally foreign to most folks. About line play and trench play. Even guys who know ball, line play is a whole different world.
Yeah, I coached college offensive line 4 years, and I would have an assistant to watch some things, but I want to make sure that they knew what I expected out of each one of them every time. That I wanted
singular voice
them to think like I think,
Yeah.
And we were pretty successful, doing that. Just having a line coach, maybe another guy, maybe watching their steps and making sure their first steps are good, their hand placement's good, and that kind of stuff. But in terms of the scheme and the overall playing as one, I want them to have my mindset and what I have taught them as together as a team and individually, all thinking the same thing. I think that's very important.
Yeah, Coach King just called it hive-minded. Like a hive mind. Everybody thinking the same thing on the same. All right. How about this one from DKW, David Keith Williams? I think defensive line recruiting has been exceptional, at least for the most part. The only area of weakness regarding defensive line recruiting is Texas not getting a nose tackle anchor each class. That is, I would say those are just rare though. Right, that nose tackle anchor, and now you got a couple of guys on the roster now. Of course, Ian Gerard, first and foremost. I mean, that's kind of his expertise. But you got Sharma, you got a couple of guys that can do it now. Muschamp won't neglect that. And, I would say that PK, some of his best defenses also had, really good nose tackles. I think it's coming back now to have at least one of those guys that can specialize in playing the 1 or the 0 technique.
I think the way things have shifted, Rod, and it's happened pretty quickly, but it's almost like, you can get a quality nose out of the portal pretty easily that's already experienced, already has the collegiate body armor on him, and he's good to go. So you really probably only need a true nose tackle like every other class, where you can still develop, a handful of guys. Even Zion Williams they brought in, but he's only had, he redshirted, right? So he still has 4 years of eligibility. So I think it's a position that is so unique and requires so few snaps that it's probably the easiest to replace in the portal, maybe outside of wide receiver, right? It's just you don't need a ton of them, and there's usually a handful that are available that can be more than serviceable while you guys that are already in your program are coming along.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. All right, thank you for that one, DKW. We appreciate it. Oregon Coach Longhorn says Sark needs to bring back the fullback. I missed that position being utilized. Yeah, I mean, Nick Townsend is as close as you have to a fullback right now on the roster. I was talking to my man Matt Trissel about this because I played with fullback. I know I'm old. I played with fullback. So did you, Marcus. I played with.
I played some fullback. I sure did. Yeah, man. When we let's see, when it would have been, so Bull was there my freshman year. He retired. Then Coach Robinson came in. Then Chiswick came in. And when Chiswick came in, I kind of double timed between linebacker and fullback. It just so happened that Ahmad Hall was a grown man and straight out the Marines, and went UDFA and started for the Titans. So that didn't work out so well. And then at linebacker, there was some guy named Derek Johnson that was lighting it up. So I just was around some awesome guys that, you know, when it got down to it, they were just better than me, man. And there wasn't no shame in that. But Will Trissel, even Ivan, I think when he first, you know, after he had gotten banged up a little bit, played a little bit of fullback.
Probably did, yeah.
But we hated going against Will. I don't know if there's many of those. And even when you look in the league, you know, Rod, you'll see it with like who's out there with Kyle, and then the guy, and then the Ravens guy, like they're huge. They're not even like true fullbacks. They're like 300 pounds sometimes. Yeah, no,
you're right about that. And I think the fullback is, I don't say it's making a comeback, but I'm seeing more and more teams go heavier personnel.
Yeah. So I remember back in the day, Roy Williams would come over on short yardage and from defensive line and play that lead blocker.
Miller.
Roy Miller. That's right.
Miller.
Yeah. Out of Killeen. Yeah, he was a beast. I mean, he would blow 2 or 3 people, just pancake them.
Yeah.
You know, he would go through. He had that low center of gravity, and he understood leverage. You know, and so if you can recruit, a big burly nose guard every other class, why can't you recruit, a burly fullback? You know, they don't have to be tall. In fact, sometimes being tall fullback is not good unless you have really strong legs and really strong hips, because you've got to get underneath those guys' pads and explode into them. I was a fullback. I know how that goes. Yeah. You know, I wasn't a very good one, but I like that, and it's a position that you don't use every down, obviously. But what has been one of our Achilles heel, thorn in our side has been not being able to make short yardage plays.
That's right.
You know, and I even like the idea. Yeah, Derek Lokey did the same thing. Derek Lokey even caught a touchdown pass out of the backfield. But those kind of freaky guys like that, freaky athletic guys, are nice. Even if you bring one over from the defensive line for short yardage situations or whatever, you know, you don't have to make it difficult for them. But those body types and that explosion as they bring, you know, may not be worth having a guy full time at that spot. But I don't think with the roster limit going up, I don't think it's a bad investment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think only challenge you have, and I think it plays right into what you said, Coach. The only challenge you have in actually getting a full-time guy is like high school offenses have changed so much. How often does anybody even play fullback in high school anymore?
That's true.
So, you know, everybody wants to catch the ball and look pretty out there and all these wide open offenses. So you're right. You got to find a body type that's rugged. I mean, Roy was just angry all the time, man. Yeah. Like, and I loved it. You know, I loved watching him work, but that was just, he was perfectly suited for that when you brought him over to that side of the ball. And then you even saw it with Byron Murphy, you know, Devondre Sweat, like each of them, you know, had a little quick spell at you know, some short yardage positions and opportunities to catch the ball too. So there's some guys probably on the roster that could pull it off.
I think Coach is right, honestly, for Texas, for Sark, it's probably worth it for him to invest in a fullback because your short yardage issues have existed ever since Bijan and Rojo left. Ever since Bijan and Rojo left, you just have not been able to really have success in what I call them power situations, right? Power football, short yardage, goal line. Cody Johnson, hell, even Andrew Beck made it to the league. They turned him into a fullback.
Yeah,
that was recently. Yep. I think because what you need in situational football, all right, you have to have an identity in situational football, right? You have to have something you do really well in that situation. Like everybody ain't got the tush push, but that's a really good example of it. It's like, no, short yardage, this is what we do. This is our identity. All right, we can and remember Sark tried it, right? Sark tried the Wildcat in those situations. He tried jumbo package in those situations. He's tried different things, but he still needs to figure out an identity in your power situations. What's gonna be your go-to? Because that helps cost you a chance to go to a national title. Ohio State game. Cost you a chance to advance in championships. Beck's in the NFL with that. So I think for Sark, it might be worth it for him to go against the grain on this thing. And not saying he's got to invest a lot, but it's a fullback. How much is it going to cost you? It don't cost you money to invest in a fullback and try to and maybe he's doing it already with Nick Townsend. Maybe he's already ahead of us. Like, no, Nick Townsend's going to be my fullback, guys. Yeah. He's physical. He likes to hit. And he's got a nice little body type forward, and he's athletic, so I can use him in the passing game. But he needs you can add power to your offense in a number of ways. You can do it with the scheme itself. Literally, you run power plays, you running gap plays, you're running downhill. That's what Texas ran. When I was talking to Matt Trissel, I was like, "Hey Trissel, how often did y'all run gap and zone?" He was like, "Zone? Man, all we ran was gap. We ran downhill on people. That's it. Boom,
ISO.
Yeah, 5 plays. Boom, boom." Boom, they running gap on that. It was a power offense, right? Said B running downhill on guys. So the scheme itself was the power element of the offense. You know what the power element of Texas offense right now is? It's Arch. Arch is your best power runner right now in power situations. That's probably not good, but he is. They actually for the first time this year, Texas ran more power gap schemes in their running game than they did zone schemes for the first time. So Sark understands I got to get there with the power gap schemes. I got to be able to play bully ball because I'm in the SEC. Otherwise, I'm going to get pumped in the SEC by those 3 or 4 teams like Georgia and them teams that got their lines of scrimmage. We're going to get punked by them because all we can do is run outside zone. We can't be that team. That's why Cedric back. That's why they've let these young freshman power backs like Cedric Baxter and Jared Gibson get run so early because they need them. They need a power. Now, the power element could be the running back. If you get what's the running back from Florida? What was his name? That we thought Jaluk was going to bring.
Baugh.
Yeah, if you get Jaden Baugh, power back.
Yeah.
The guy from Mike Washington from Arkansas, power back. You don't need the power element. We got Rojo in the backfield. We don't need no power element. Give it to Rojo. He's gonna bang around in there. He's gonna play bully ball. Or it can be, maybe your offensive line's really physical. Texas doesn't really have a physical power element in any of those areas. That's why they were looking for a power back this year. Arch is your physical power element in your run game, and that's probably not ideal.
It's funny when you say that too, Rod, and both you and Coach will remember this. Like, the short end of the practice field, right? When we would go inside drill, back then, that's all it was. Like you weren't running outside the tackles. It was literally up the gut, right? I'd be curious if I get a chance to sneak out there this spring. Me and Stevie always talk about just trying to get out there and watch some of the earlier practices before they get to the spring game. I'm curious what they run in those situations now, because to your point, they don't really have the backs with the body type, nor like a fullback like that outside of the 2 guys they just recruited, right? Derek Cooper and Jet Walker. Like those are probably the 2 that are best suited for that running style.
Yep.
I think Simon is a very pure runner, but he's not your physical banger, so to speak. That's more of the style of the 2, true freshmen. And you don't want to major in that necessarily. So I'll be curious. That may be something I keep an eye on if I get a chance to get out there is when they go inside, like how are they approaching that?
Yep. Great point. Who's the guy? I agree. I think they're going to go back to just running a lot of outside zone, but I think Nick Townsend they want him to be a physical element. I do think Derek Cooper, from what I hear, he may be one of those young backs that can add some power to the run game for you. But it's an issue that he's had now for a few years. And I think Coach had a good idea. Why not just go invest in a fullback? And like I said, maybe Nick Townsend is that guy. Maybe they're already in the process of solving that problem. I wouldn't doubt it. Sark's pretty sharp. All right, let's thank our couple of sponsors, and then we will end today's program. Let's thank our friends over at Hayes City Store. We appreciate our friends at Hayes City Store, and you will as well. But first, I've been going to Hayes City Store for a long time. Before me and my wife were married, we loved Hayes City Store, and now that we're married, we go out there. We got the kiddo and everything. We've been going there for years. It is a fantastic place to hang out. What I love about it, folks, it is scratch comfort food. My favorite genre of food, if you will, is comfort food, and it is made from scratch. It is great. Love the ambiance there, if you will. This customer service is fantastic. I love the truck stop enchiladas, the award-winning chicken fried steak, homemade desserts, all of it, like I said, made from scratch. There's also live music 6 nights a week with 50 beers on tap, ice cold long necks, and tasty margaritas. I will vouch for the margaritas. They are really good. There are 11 TVs alone in the Ice House, perfect for game days. They even have brunch served from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every Sunday. Hayes City Store is dog friendly, so you can bring the dog out there, bring the kids out there. They got this huge tree net. All the kids can run around. Plenty of space for the kiddos to run around too. So bring the whole gang. Join the folks out at Hayes City Store and bring your whole crew. For more information, check out the website at HayesCityStoreTX.com. That's Hayes City Store. It's uniquely Texas. And let's also thank our lead sponsor, our friends over at Vaughn Lane. Before we end tonight's program, we appreciate Vaughn Lane and all of their support of On Texas football. Like I said, I've taken it several times. I've taken it to Houston. I've taken it to DFW. I've taken it to Dallas. I've taken it to visit family. I've taken it on business. And the Vaughn Lane has never let me down. I always get there refreshed, feeling good. Got a lot of time to work. Sometimes I don't work. I just relax. Whatever you decide, Vaughn Lane is the best choice for you. Don't drive yourself dealing with road rage and traffic, and then you arrive there and you're in a bad mood and you're tired. Don't take the flights either, because those short trips still not really worth it. The flight delays, and you got TSA you got to deal with, and then the jet lag when you arrive there. Trust me, the Vaughn Lane service delivers a first-class travel experience on the ground. You board in minutes at a private hotel terminal, settle into one of just 22 oversized leather seats. You enjoy complimentary snacks, beverages, Wi-Fi, and on select trips, full meal. And they've even upgraded their internet with Starlink across the entire fleet, making their Wi-Fi faster and even more reliable. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Plano, the Woodlands, Memphis, Nashville, Atlanta, and Knoxville. And if you're traveling with a team, you can charter your own Vaughn Lane coach, designing the trip from pickup to drop off. And you can visit VaughnLane.com, VONLANE.com. And if it's your first time riding, enter the code OTF26 at checkout to receive $20 off your first trip. That's Vaughn Lane, your private jet on wheels. Thank you very much to our friends over at Vaughn Lane. All right, we got a couple more questions before we get out of here. Secondary related one from Brian. Do you guys think Bo will move to star to allow Littleton and Phillips to play the corner spots?
Talked about that a little at one point, right, Rod?
This is a good question.
That it's something that he has the skill set probably to do, and even the body type if need be.
Yeah, we don't know Muschamp's preference. Muschamp preference, from what I've studied, he wants a bigger nickel. He'd like a bigger nickel. Maybe a little bit thicker, a little bit longer, and I would say broader, just a broader upper body than Grayson Littleton. Grayson Littleton is still fine at the nickel. He's still one of your best run defenders. He covers. Yes, he's really sticky in coverage. I think the question would be, how do you get your best 5 guys on the field? And maybe moving Bo Masco around or Grayson Littleton around to do that is the best way. I mean, Jelani McDonald should play some of that nickel too. I mean, just in your big nickel packages, because I think, and maybe that's the key. Maybe you just kind of rotate who's at that nickel position. Maybe sometimes you use Grayson Littleton at safety in some situations, so you can put Jelani McDonald down in the box at that nickel. I'm not sure. I will admit, I'm not sure how Muschamp's going to do it. I do know that, Jelani McDonald's I think he's going to have a hell of a year. And I think they want to showcase his versatility. So I think you will get some big nickel packages. But Bo Masco can play nickel. He played, I believe, 181 snaps in his career. He's played the slot. And he's a little thicker. And he's a good tackler in the open field. He's a really good tackler in the open field. And maybe, he's more physical. But I say that Grayson Littleton forced 2 fumbles at the nickel spot. And I thought actually And as a run defender, I want to say Grayson Littleton was actually a top 5 run defender for you as well. Like Grayson Littleton, Pro Football Focus grades, if you trust those, they have Grayson Littleton, as one of his top 5 best run defenders. 3rd highest graded run defender for Longhorns.
He's a ball player.
So I mean, if you trust Pro Football Focus, then they're saying he's one of your top run defenders. So I think Muschamp's got to get in there and look at these guys. I don't know how much of a look he'll get in spring, but he's probably watched enough film on them and just see, hey, do you think Grayson Littleton is physical enough to be your nickel? Because I think he wants a really physical nickel. The nickels at Texas he had, think about them. What do you have? Aaron Williams was his nickel. Did I get that right? Was Aaron Williams around?
I think so. Time? Yeah, I think he played some.
I think that's his ideal nickel. Think about that guy. You remember how he looked? Looked like a freak, like like an alien out there, man. So I think he wants a big, but right now Grayson Littleton can play it, and I think Bo Maskell can play it too. So I don't think either one of those guys is a liability at nickel. So I think you got options. I'll just say it like that. All right. Thank you guys for the super chats and the questions. Really appreciate all of you guys and your participation. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Oh, yes. I should say this more often. Thank you, Blake. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I don't think I ever say that. I say that all the time. Everybody who does streaming, they always say hit like and subscribe. I never say that. So thank you very much, Blake. Thank you for your hard work, Marcus. We appreciate you as always, Coach. Thank you for the wisdom and the levity. Also, guys, send prayers out to Matthew. Prayers and your well wishes out to my man Matthew. He's the MVP. He's the heart and soul of OTF, and he's going through it right now. So we appreciate you guys showing him some love for Matthew and for Marcus and for Coach and also for Blake behind the scenes. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.